everybody, and welcome to another Agile IT Tech Talk. This is Sean Spicer, your host. Today, I'm joined by David Branscome, Partner Technical Architect over at Microsoft. We work pretty closely with him. You'll probably recognize the name from a couple of really good Tech Talks in the past. But today, we're going to be talking about the Office Cloud Policy Service and Security Policy Advisor tools, which just were announced in public preview about a week and a half ago. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Great. And hot on the heels of all the announcements at Build. So what are these new tools?
So the Cloud Policy Service, you might think of it as a cloud-based GPO for Office products. And then the Security Policy Advisor takes a look at what's going on in your environment and provides recommendations about how to configure those policies at a very high level. That's kind of a simple way of describing it.
Okay, and I've looked a little bit at some of the kind of advanced press around this, and it looks like it really makes things a lot simpler than dealing with Secure Score and dealing kind of tenant-wise. It's more of a user focus.
Yeah, so it because Office is licensed per user, the policy settings are applied to the users, and that as I'll show you here in just a few minutes, that'll apply to machines that are domain joined, Azure AD joined, or even not joined to any domain. So as long as you've got the Office 365 subscription, Office 365 Pro Plus installed on a machine, these settings can apply to it. So it's very flexible and very useful for companies that bring your own device policies and things of that nature.
Yeah, I was reading about that. Well, I'm excited to see it.
All right, well, let's take a look. So as I mentioned, it is a cloud-based policy management for Office 365 Pro Plus. And really a lot of the reason for its existence is the fact that we're trying to allow people to use the Office 365 tools wherever they are on whatever device they're using. But at the same time, there is a need to make sure that there is security built into the tools. And so we want to make sure that IT admins can secure the environment and secure the tools that they're using so that end users aren't doing things that could potentially compromise the security of an environment. So we'll take a look at what these look like. In general, this is kind of the infrastructure setup. It is a centralized management console for Office policies for any user on any device. It provides with some policy health reporting. You're able to resolve conflicts in the policies. So, for example, if you have different policies applied to different groups and the user is a member of different groups and there are conflicting policies, it'll give you an alert on that type of thing and allow you to resolve them. And there is also hybrid support. So if you've got group policies in your Active Directory domain, we have hybrid support for that. Basically, the way this works is that there is a client agent that allows you to apply the policy and report compliance to the service back up in Office 365. And then the Office apps themselves provide the enforcement of the policy. So the way basically it works is when a user starts up their the Office 365 Pro Plus applications, whether it's Word or Outlook or whatever, that application is going to go out to the service and it's going to verify that the user is licensed. In the process of validating that license, you get a token, and that token is also going to serve as the basis for applying the policies that the user is a member of. So it'll look at whatever Azure AD groups you might be a member of, and it'll apply the relevant policies to you based on your group membership. So that's
now,
kind
is that going to apply to mobile devices as well for the mobile
exactly.
apps?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So let's take a quick look at what that interface looks like. Let's build out that animation there. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the Cloud Policy Service, and there are three pieces that we're going to look at today. So the first one is the Policy Service. So when you want to set up a policy, it's really very simple. So the first thing you're going to do, get my little pointer here, my laser pointer. First thing you're going to do is create a policy, name it. Then you will assign it to a group, some sort of group that you've defined in Azure Active Directory, for example. And then you configure the policies. And then over here, as you can see, there's well over 1,000 policies. And remember, this is only related to Office. So these are not the type of policies like you have in your on-prem Active Directory GPOs, where you don't show control panel and don't allow users to add administrator accounts, stuff like that. But this is all related to Office. So all the Office applications can be configured here and managed from that one location. So you define the policy, and then as soon as you click save, then the policy is ready to be applied. So the next time someone who is a member of the finance group logs in to one of their Office applications, these policies will be applied to that end user. So that's very simple, the way that group policy or policy cloud policy service, I'm trying to get the names right here, the cloud policy service works. Now there's a second aspect to this, the security policy advisor for Office 365 Pro Plus. So it's managed in the same console, right? So here is where we had the policy configuration that we were just looking at, but just below it is the security policy advisor. And so what the security policy advisor is going to do is it's going to look at the policies that are configured and how they're being applied to end users. And then it's going to compare that against Microsoft's baseline recommendations for security. So for example, if you have macros enabled for your Excel spreadsheets or something like that, we'll provide recommendations based on Microsoft's threat analytics. We'll understand what's going on there. And we'll say, this is something that you might want to consider. It's not configured yet, but it is something that might be a way to enhance the security of your environment. So the way this would work is that in your policy configurations, it's going to go through the policy of, or going to go through the process of generating recommendations. And so it's going to look at the policy that you've configured, in the case, the HR group, and it's going to make recommendations. And this is based on the way that your end users are using the product. So if it sees that people are enabling macros or using macros, then it's going to make recommendations based on that action by the end users. So if it sees that people aren't using it or that it's been disabled or whatever, it's not going to provide a recommendation around that.
Great.
So,
I just recently read an article, pardon me, talking about some of the difficulties that sysadmins are currently running into with Flow. So you've got within Outlook, somebody can set up forwarding and things like that, and the admin can see it. But the way that Flow is interacting with Exchange or with Outlook itself, people are able to set up forwards and rules that the admins can't see. So will these security policies kind of engage with Flow and recognize there? Is that included?
No. So okay. This isn't necessarily going to do that. It's governing the configuration of your Outlook or whatever Office application you have.
Okay.
So basically the settings in that product. Now, as far as your Flow question, there is in the Flow Admin Center the ability to set up different environments and configure allowed applications. So you can say that the only applications that are allowed to interact with each other are these approved business apps. And so you can say, I'm not going to allow people to send or forward their email to their Gmail account. So you can configure Flow to prevent that kind of data leakage scenario by defining the approved apps. And if you like, we can have a session on that a different time, because I really like Flow, and I think it's a great tool.
I've been playing a lot with it.
No, it's a lot of fun. But there are some security considerations that you want to take into account, and it's good to talk about those. So once the service has generated a set of recommendations, those recommendations are available for the admin to look at. And so this is what they might look like in an example here. So we've got Visual Basic macro notification settings across a variety of different apps. So it noticed that there is a setting that could be applied to these applications that would be useful from a security perspective. Now, what it's the interesting aspect of this is that in this one, it noticed that 5% of the users in the group would be impacted by a change to the word setting for Visual Basic macros. So let's take a look at what that would do.
Great.
Yeah. And so what it does, if you click on that, it'll show you which users would be impacted by that or that have been targeted by this type of an attack, and then which users would be impacted that would be most impacted if you change the setting. So in this case, Banu Parochuri is one of the ones that would be most impacted by this because he's been using this feature. So you get an idea of how you could use this in order to work with your end users and understand what it is they're trying to do, and not negatively impact productivity prior to making this setting change. And so you can change the setting up here, and then down below this area, the section with the blue, there's an apply setting which would change the setting for the environment overall. So that's really pretty useful, and it helps you to avoid situations where you break people. You're able to understand how they're using it and can maybe set up different policies that would apply to them. The third aspect that's available in the same console is the Office customization tool. And so the Office customization tool is what allows you to create the XML file that you use to deploy Office. So a lot of times, especially in certification exams, they'll ask you about this particular XML file and what product's not going to be installed and that kind of thing. But this allows you to automate the creation of that type of a file. So it'll ask you, what architecture you're deploying of Office, which products, Visio, Project Online, and any other any other applications that you're using within Office. And then you can go down into the individual applications. So like in this case, I'm in Outlook, and I've got a whole bunch of different settings within Outlook that I can drill down into, but I can configure these specific settings. So these are the same settings that are available in the Cloud Policy service, but if I want to set them out of the box, right? So as soon as a user connects to Office 365, once they've got the product installed, it'll be installed with these settings configured as I want them to. And then later, if I need to change them, I can use the Cloud Policy service to adjust them as needed. So, and then it generates this XML file, and this is probably familiar to anybody that has ever deployed Office in any kind of environment. It tells you the products and the languages and all that good stuff that you need when you're deploying Office.
So I always get a warm fuzzy when I see Link.
Yeah, right. Or Groove. Yeah. Let me break out of my thing here, and I'll show you. All right, so this is my configuration of the, and let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Okay, so I'm in the policy configuration. Let me actually go up to the deployment configuration. So this is the deployment tool that I was just showing you. And as I mentioned, you change the architecture however you want. You select the Office product that you want to deploy, and notice that it does allow you to deploy the volume license versions, not just the Office 365 Pro Plus, and then what versions of the other products you want to deploy. Maybe I don't want to deploy Access, but I do want to deploy OneNote. I don't want to deploy Skype. What channel do I want to use of the releases of Office 365? So I might have some people that I'm targeting for a particular channel, and others that get maybe a later channel.
Nice.
I go on to the language that I want to choose, so English. I can change where I'm getting the installation files, whether I'm getting it from the Office CDN or someplace local, or I'm using SCCM. What do I want to do if there are NSI versions of the product already installed on my machines? So I want to remove them, for example. And in this case, for removed MSI versions of Office, install the same languages, so I'll do that. Then the licensing and activation, maybe I want to automatically accept the EULA. I can change whatever the name is that I want to put here for the company properties. And then lastly, here are the actual settings that I can configure. So if I go into Word, for example, I can enable live preview. I'll say yes. I'll show deletions color is going to be pink. Insertions color is going to be green, bright green.
Oh, this is really granular.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Nice.
And then finish. So once that's finished, then over here on the side, I have the settings that I've configured for this version of the tool. And get this little bar out of the way. I export it, and I can say Word configuration. I'll export it, and then it creates this the document that I showed you the screenshot of, right? So that's the XML file that I would use for deploying Office. So very, very simple way of creating this, very logical. So that it can really speed up your Office deployments using this tool. All right, so going into the policy configuration, if I want to create another policy, and I'm going to say this one's going to be for IT, I want to select a group, and I'll say business user since I don't have a IT group. I create that, go back in, and configure the individual policies that I want. And again, this might take a little bit of time going through 1,300 policies, but let's say I want to change the policies for Word. Again, then it will, at some point here, no, I'm not sure why it's not showing. Let's configure the screen tips. Right. And so that's the one thing that I'm going to configure. Click Save. And now the next person that logs in, who is a member of that business users group, right? This business users group, they will get this policy, and it's just a badly named one, but that's how that will work. You can reorder the priority of the policies so that if a user is a member of multiple groups, maybe you want this one to be applied. You might want to have a baseline configuration, for example, and then get more granular as you get into different departments. So that might be one way to approach it. So that's the policy service. And then the security advisor. In this case, I don't have enough data to collect any information, but from the screenshots, you could see roughly what that would look like. But it would give you information that would show me how different products are being used in my environment, what security configurations could be enhanced to make it function a little bit better or more securely, and then I could make the changes from that location. But the reason this doesn't have enough data is that you actually have to have Office clients working within the environment and clicking on things so that it has some telemetry to work with. But in my case, this environment didn't have any clients that I could collect that information from. So that's kind of the whole kit and caboodle of this tool. Any questions?
Wow, that looks really simple as well as powerful. Yeah, my question is, how does this kind of link up with SecureScore and the other security offerings in Microsoft 365?
Oh, okay, good question. So once you can connect this to one of the good things. If you've got these recommendations coming through in security, if you've got one of the threat intelligence SKUs, this will feed into the advanced threat protection what do you call it, dashboard, and
Beautiful.
so that will show up in Secure Score, and you'll get all the very specific information about how Office is even configured in your environment, not just Windows. So yeah, great question.
That's awesome. So usually what we do is we go ahead and we close off the recording, and we allow our live attendees who are our clients to ask questions about their own environments, how this technology will affect them. But for those of you watching online, thank you for joining. You can get a link to the full write-up down below on YouTube. Give us a like and share, and we'll see you next week.